this sikha, even though if you notice it says on the cover it's Parshas Yisro, it's from Chelik Vav Lekutei Sichos and the Sichos on Yisro, but it's a classic Shavuos sikha because it speaks about the Aseres HaDibros, and it again takes the Rebbe's style of analyzing different opinions about seemingly two minor events that took place by Matan Torah. What the Yidden said and what was going on around, and connects these events and brings out very deep approaches to how we have to look at the connection of the Torah in this world, and how there are even like two approaches and two ways to relate to the world and two ways to see things in this world. So here the Chazal are very puzzled, and all the Mefarshim talk about it. Why does it say over here leimer? Ba'ofen klali mashmos hamila leimer hi kedei loymar shuv ledugma. Vayidaber Hashem a Moshe leimer hakavani hi shem Moshe yimser lebnei Yisrael es divrei HaKadosh Baruch Hu elav. So that's why you have to say leimer, because not everybody heard every single time that Hashem spoke to Moshe. So you have to tell Moshe, I am giving you information to give it over to the Yidden. Leimer. Ach, bepsukeinu by Aseres HaDibros ein lahasber kach. Ki b'Matan Torah Dibra HaKadosh Baruch Hu el kol b'nei Yisrael. Ubimyuchad kasher b'kol Yisrael kan hakavani l'chol neshamas Yisrael b'chol hadoros shekula nachu b'kabalas haTorah v'shamas hadibros ma'akadosh Baruch Hu be'atzmai. So you cannot even say, let's say, if there was something else that took place, there was vayakil Moshe kol ha'am, and he spoke to them. Maybe over there you can also say the word leimer. Why? Because they're going to have to tell it over to the next generations, to those that weren't there. But by Matan Torah, you can't say that leimer means to tell it over to the next generation, because we know that the neshamas of all the generations were there. So why would it say leimer? That because it says, leimer. So therefore, the Medrash has a different approach than the simple meaning of the word leimer everywhere else, and introduces leimer means that they had to respond. When the Yidden were told Aseres HaDibros, they responded to the Eibishter. L'chein muzbar b'mechilta shamashmoes shal leimer kan hilanois shal kol diburei shiva b'nei Yisrael shehem yitzaisu litzivui zeh. That was their response. We said, we'll do it. Yes. Correct. We accept. Now, in this type of leimer that the Yidden said that they're going to accept, there are two opinions. L'gabe ha'ofen shebay bitu b'nei Yisrael's kabalas hadibros muvois b'mechilta shtei deis. Rabbi Yishmael oimer shahayu oimrim al hein v'al lav, meaning shal al dibros misug shal kum v'asei hein anu Yisrael hein shem yasazois v'al al dibros shenitztavu loy lasois lav Akiva b'nei Yisrael lav shem lo yasas ma'akadosh baruch hu oiser. In other words, when it said kabedus avicha v'simecha, so they said, hey, yes, we'll do that. When it says over there lo signov, so it says, no, we won't do it. That's what Rabbi Yishmael said was the leimer, the response of the Yidden to the Aseres HaDibros. V'ilu Rabbi Akiva omer shebnei Yisrael heshivu al hein v'al lav hein. Shal kol hadibros hein dibros shal hein aseh v'hein dibros shal lav lo taseh hem yeshivu ba'oiseh lashon hein shem yitzaisu letzivui Hashem kol tzivui lefi mashmos. In other words, they said yes, but it didn't mean that when it says don't bow down to avodah zarah, so they said yes. It doesn't mean yes that we'll bow down. Yes, we accept that we won't bow down to avodah zarah. So according to Rabbi Akiva, they said hein on everything. They said yes for everything. And that's a machlokes between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Now, of course, Torah is not just a history book. It's not information, especially if the information is seemingly not relevant. What does it make a difference that everyone wants to know? They said yes, they said no. It's the same idea. They accepted it. Ein moven maut teichen ha machlokes Mao have the matshuvi beloshen shlila lav. Shem lo yavru al yiser. I beloshen chiyuv hein. Shem yikaim was at sivui. Koloimar lo yasu was a asur. Vari kavona shtei atshuva zoyel lechoyda. That both of them meant that they accept Aseres HaDibros. What's it make a difference how they answered it? Why is it a big deal? Why does Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva have to even discuss it? Now, that's one topic. Now, then he's going to bring in a totally different question that Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva also argue about. Yesh machlokes nosefes ben oisen tanoim, Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Akiva. V'af hi b'kesher l'matan Torah. Al ha'pasuk v'chol roim es hakolos. Eimer Rabbi Yishmael, roim es hakolos. It's a very strange type of expression. It says, Cholam roim es hakolos, v'salapidim v'sa'esh. So Rabbi Yishmael says, it doesn't mean, don't stop by the word kolos. It means what it says later in the pasuk. The lapidim, the eish, that's what they saw. Not that the kolos they saw. Royin hanira, whatever was possible to be seen, that's what they saw. V'shoymin hanishma, whatever was meant to be heard, that's what they heard. So as far as kolos were concerned, the thunder, that they heard, and as far as the eish, the lapidim, that they saw, and the kola shofar, they heard. Don't read into it that because it says royin and kolos next to each other, it means that they saw what's usually heard. Sha'amila royim eina misyacheses lemilas kolos elo lapidim amuskarim b'em shkapasuk v'ilu es ha-kolos shem davar ha-nishma achin shama b'nei Yisrael v'loiro. They didn't see the kolos. V'ilu Rabbi Akiva Aimer royin ha-nishma, that which is usually heard, in other words, the kolos, royim es ha-kolos kipshutoi. They saw the kolos. V'shoymin hanira, and the things that are ordinarily seen, like the lapidim, like the eish, they heard. She's ha-kolos shem davar nishma b'ofen tivi hem ro, ves lapidim shem davar nira hem sham. Yedu ha-klal lo yovid kutshabrichu nisa l'magona. Hashem does not make a miracle for nothing. When Hashem makes a miracle, we spoke about this by Kriyas Yamsuf. The Yidden didn't need to have the Yamsuf split for them because eventually they came up on the same side. So there was no need for the Kriyas Yamsuf to take place. And the Rebbe explains the whole meaning of what the Kriyas Yamsuf is. The same thing over here. This is a strangeness. Yeah, it's very exciting, it's crazy. You see what you usually hear, and you hear what you usually see. It was a wild experience. But why? Why would the Eibishter make this thing? Does it help anybody? Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Eibishter made miracles. Yidden needed to eat in the midbar. He made miracles. He gave them the man. They had to cross the Yarden. The Eibishter made a miracle for them to cross the Yarden. Hey, they had to conquer Yericha. He made a miracle that the wall should fall down. But what purpose is there for the Eibishter to just make these type of miracles? They should be able to see what's usually heard. V'kivim shakach hechreichi loymar shal hanes shal roinas hanishma v'shoyminas hanirim l'shitas Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva is the one that holds that there was such a nes. Rabbi Yishmael doesn't hold that. Loyhoya davar b'noisef l'matan Torah shari oz hoya zen nisel l'magon, it was for nothing. Ela nes zeh hoya chelik me'inyan matan Torah. Matan Torah roimim es b'nei Yisrael l'dargis nailus b'yoyser. The chelik metoitzas hais alus gavoy azul das Rabbi Akiva hu roinas hanishma v'shoyminas hanira. And then the Rebbe continues. Rabbi Yishmael that says that the Yidden did not have this miracle, he also held that the Yidden were on a high level. Why does he not hold that they had this miracle? V'kach echrechi loymar gam l'shitz Rabbi Yishmael shalafi pirusha ikivim sha'atoyra mesaperes al kach b'kesh al matan Torah haribis alus hagvoya shal matan Torah chelik mateitzah hu dafka oifen shal roinas hanira v'shoyminas hanishma b'nei Yisrael zachu loifen zeh shal gili b'ais matan Torah. The Torah is not just telling you that there was thunder and there was lapidim, a lot of lapids. There was lapidim. It doesn't just tell you that. What it says is that the Yidden saw those things that we're seeing. Why is it important by Matan Torah when the Yidden were elevated to such a high level to tell you that they saw what's usually seen. According to Rabbi Yishmael, there was nothing special about it. The time of Matan Torah, you're going to tell us the Yidden were regular, they were normal. Why would the Torah have to point out that the Yidden were so normal? That's the natural thing. So why does the Torah even have to tell you this took place by Matan Torah? Then the Rebbe says, these are not just two separate machlokes. These two are connected. On the same topic, Matan Torah. Savir loymar sheshtei adayis kruche zu bezu. Ubnei aplukte neuktim kol echad b'shitasai. Lefi hashita shel roim sanira v'shoymin sanishma yesh loymar shehei meshiva al hein v'al lav. Lefi hashita shel roim sanishma v'shoymin sanira, which is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, hechreichi loymar shemeshiva al hein v'al lav. There's a concept in Gemara of Lo Taseh, that and especially later Mefarshim like to bring it out, and the Rebbe has many sichos about this, how there is a certain common denominator that you could see at Tzad HaShaveh between certain Tanoim or Amiroim that are arguing, and the same idea they're arguing about in different cases. Except sometimes it's necessary to say it in each case because you might not know it. So Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai argue in different cases, and the Rebbe will find and explain what do they have in common between them. Rabbi Yonis and Rabbi Yoshia have this, Rav and Abaye have this, Rav and Shmuel have this, that there is a common thread, a tzad hashavah shebenayim, what they're arguing about. Here, the Rebbe doesn't necessarily say this by everything about Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael, but at least over here, where they're both arguing about situations having to do with Matan Torah, it's not just two separate arguments. The Rebbe says they must be linked with each other. Because they hold one way in one thing, that's why they hold the other way in the other thing. So now, parenthetically, even though it's going to be in the Gale later on, Rashi, you're telling me that what Rabbi Akiva says about hearing and seeing is connected also to what he said about how they answered. And what Rabbi Yishmael said about they heard what they heard and they saw what they saw is connected with him saying that they answered al hein v'al lav. If you look in Rashi, Rashi says one like one opinion and the other like the other opinion. In other words, the Rebbe is like challenging himself. How do you tell me that these two things are connected? What Rabbi Yishmael says about Royin Sanira v'Shaymin Sanishma, and what he says about Oimrim al Hein v'al Lav are connected, and what Rabbi Akiva says Royin Sanishma v'Shaymin Sanira is connected to they said al Hein v'al Lav. If they're connected, how does Rashi say one according to Rabbi Yishmael and the other according to Rabbi Akiva? Actually, it's the other way around. He says one according to Rabbi Akiva, the other according to Rabbi Yishmael. Let's look inside. Ein hadavar soisel apirish Rashi al Torah. Asher pasuk leimer hu soiver Rabbi Yishmael. Rashi says on the pasuk in Chumash on the word leimer, because Rashi is also bothered by this. What's the word leimer doing over here? So how does Rashi explain it? Rashi explains it with the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. Melamed shoyoinim al hein v'al lav. That's Rabbi Yishmael's opinion. V'ilu al royim es hakoilus, which Rashi again is bothered. Why does it say royim es hakoilus? So he says, hu oimer royim es hanishma, and whose opinion is that? Kedas Rabbi Akiva. So if you just now finish telling me that Rabbi Yishmael's opinion is connected in both cases, and Rabbi Akiva's opinion is connected in both cases, how can Rashi choose to go like Rabbi Yishmael in one and like Rabbi Akiva in the other? So he says, Ki ha'hechrach shel Rabbi Akiva lahasbir she'shiva alav hein, einoi mipnei shitas halimud shebeprat royin es hanishma, el meprat hasheni shoymin es hanira. There are two points that Rabbi Akiva says. One is what it says in the pasuk, royim es hakoilus. From that, we learn out that royim es hanishma. And by extension, we also know that shoymin es hanira. When Rabbi Akiva says what he says about alav hein, that has nothing to do with what it says in the pasuk royim es hakoilus, royim es hanishma. The reason why he says alav hein is because of the second part, that shoymin es hanira. Rashi is not talking about the second part. Therefore, he doesn't have to say the same connection. V'kivim sharashi maybe pirush al Torah. Rakas einin sharoyin san nishmam lachein hu yochel lahasbir a pasuk leimer kedash Rabbi Yishmael alav lav. But of course, we didn't really explain anything. All we said is, A is connected to B, C is connected to D, D is not necessarily connected to A. But how and why, none of that has been explained yet. So here the Rebbe is going to go into a very interesting breakdown about how the senses of a person work. And by the way, Shmiya does not just mean the literal sense of hearing when I hear something because of sound waves, but hearing means also that I'm listening and understanding something and learning something. So there's two ways how a person can get information. One way how you can receive information is through seeing an event, a thing. Another way is by hearing about it or understanding it. What's the difference if I see an event or I hear about an event? I don't know the word mudois, but it means it's a lot more vaday by him. Kasher Adam roya be'einav shekachu adavar lo yishachnea oisei shum hesber higyoinish adavar hu acheres. You could try to explain to him from today until tomorrow, this didn't happen, it makes no sense. He said, I don't know if it makes sense or not. I saw it. I remember hearing once somebody give a mashal. Let's say somebody, before they knew of Australia, somebody comes back from Australia in the 1700s, in the 1600s, and says, there's this type of animal that stands on two powerful hind legs, and it has this pouch in front of it, and it carries its young in its pouch. So the guy tells him, what are you, crazy? What are you having, G-dliness? What are you out of your mind? Never saw such a thing, never heard of such a thing. So he said, I saw it with my own eyes. You're going to tell me it doesn't make any sense? I saw such an animal. Re'iyah, nobody can convince a person that saw something that they didn't see it, under normal circumstances at least. So he says, why is that so? When I understand that something is so, it doesn't connect with me as much as when I see it. A dayan needs to be completely impartial, needs to be able to rule both ways. If he saw the event, he is not allowed to be a dayan, because he cannot be impartial. He cannot find, let's say, a limud chus against the person for the person, because once he saw it, whatever you're going to tell him, it's not going to be able to convince him otherwise. Hashmiya eina chideres kol amek lenefesh ha'adam. V'davar shebeshmiya eina nechret kol kach chazak. Ubevadei shekachu kasher meduber b'shmiya havana sichlis. In other words, he's saying both types of shmiya. Shmiya is pashat hearing, or shmiya in a deeper sense, that shema we find in different times in the Torah where the word shema is referred to daber kishemei avdecha, which means that it's more than just hearing, it means understanding. So when you're talking about understanding something, Shema Yisrael, according to Chassidus, is not the way they translate in English, hear, O Israel, listen, but it means understand, exactly. Understanding does as much and as well as I understand, it's not as positive as when I see something. That is concerning the effect on the person. The different effect on the person between Re'iyah and Shmiya. Now let's talk about the difference in the object, in the thing that I see or the thing that I hear about. Beis, ha'hevdel b'neim l'gaba ha'davar ha'nishma ha'nira. Ha're'iyah teifeses gashmias. Royim es ha'davar ha'gashmi. L'uma zois ha'shmiya eina yechoilo litvois davar gashmi. Hakoil hanishma hu ruchni lo masadavar hanira. Sound waves are a lot less tangible. They're a lot less physical. And that's when we talk about Shmiya as sound waves and hearing. What about Shmiya in the deeper sense, understanding? For sure that's a davar ruchni. V'kal v'chomer, Shmiya sichlis shalinya ruchni, that's something that is completely ruchni, not a physical thing, not something you could touch. Shnei havdelim elu ben riyah l'shmiya, kruchim zeh b'zeh. This is going to be very important. The fact that riyah makes a stronger impression on me than shmiya is related to the fact that riyah has to do with a physical thing and shmiya has to do with something that's spiritual. Ha'adam hu metzias gashmis. Therefore, what's closer to him? What does he relate to better? Gashmi. V'lachein hu toifes b'tivoy davar gashmi aydei chushariyah b'yeser kalus b'yeser oimek masher davar ruchni. Ha'adam einay kli muchan l'klitas inyan ruchni v'lachein hu koiltoi aydei hashmiya aydei haseichel harachoykim yoytzer mimitziusai. So, because something is spiritual, and a person's physical, it doesn't make such a strong impression on him. But the riyah, you're taking the physical, you're seeing something physical, that's why it makes a stronger impression on the person. Matan Torah, according to Rabbi Akiva, holiness hanishma v'shominess hanira. Hanishma she'efshar l'kable rak aydei shmiya. What is something that's nishma? That's ruchnius. What's the ultimate level of ruchnius? Elokus. Oisay kiblu b'nei Yisrael bivadois u'ba'oifun muchashi shel re'iyah heimra'u elokus. By Matan Torah, everything was turned around. Instead of normally we see the gashmi, by Matan Torah they saw the ruchni, they saw elokus. V'advorim hagashmim shoyer tamid b'chinas nirem. Hayu etzlam oz ba'ifun shel shoymin kedavar sheniklat rachai de shmiya ayavana sichlis. It was so far from them. It was so distant from them. Derech Hagav, just to give an example. Later he's going to give a little bit of a more Toradic example, but I just want to give a more physical example that everybody can relate to actually have this idea of holiness hanishma. Let's say you know somebody well. Either you grew up with that person, either that person is family, your parents, your siblings, you always had them around, or someone that once you met them, you got to know them very well. Your wife, whatever. Initially, when you first meet someone, what's the first thing you see about them? Gashmis. You see their face, you see their hands, you see their eyes, you see that, whatever. You are only being toifus, you're only connecting to the gashmi. When you get to know the person, you might completely lose track of the gashmi. You have no idea even what the gashmi is. You are connected with that person on the ruchni. You're connected with their midas, with their seichel, with who that person is. You forget that this person has this type of thing or that type of thing, whatever. The gashmi is not toifus makim anymore because you are connecting with the ruchni. This is what happened by Matan Torah. The Eibishter and the world are like, it says, the world's like a huge body for the Eibishter. Before we got to know the Eibishter, before Matan Torah, what did we see? We saw the body. We saw the world. About the Eibishter we heard. The Yidden heard about Hashem. All of a sudden, by Har Sinai, there was a revelation of godliness. So then it wasn't just that we saw Hashem, but the physical didn't matter. Just like I'm saying, when you know someone, does it really make a difference that one eye maybe is a little bit larger than the other eye? Who cares? You're not even looking at that. Or that they have a blonde spot in their hair or whatever, like somebody in my family has. In the middle of his hair, in the middle of the brown hair, he has a shtickle that's blonde. I don't even notice that anymore. Why? Because it's my kid, whatever. My relationship with him is not from the externals. So when you relate to the Eibishter as the true existence of the world, so then the physicality of the world is nishma. That which was nearer up till now is only shmiyah. It's from afar. It's something you're hearing about. But that which was in a way of the nishma beforehand, that you see. That you have open in front of you. Bekach muvan shagnes shel roinus an nishma loy hoy davar nifrad mehagilu shel matan Torah ela chelik menu. We wanted to know why did they to make this nest, and what's this nest connected to Matan Torah? Because this is the very nature of Matan Torah. Kiven shel Matan Torah zachab bnei Yisrael gilui atzmas onesav baruch hu anoichi havaya lekechem, which the idea of elekechem means your power and your strength, that it becomes part of you. Lochein hem koltu alakus ruchnius ba'ifin shel re'iyah roinus anishma. Umemela bezman shel gilui alakus zeh ibda etzlam gashmis ha'olam es mitziusa haniris. It doesn't mean it stopped existing. It's there. The world didn't stop being a world, but you didn't notice the world. By the way, this is the same thing it's going to be when Mashiach comes. The world is going to exist. The physical is going to exist. My body is going to exist. But we're not going to see it. What do we mean we're not going to see it? Because we're going to be looking at the ruchnis. We're going to be looking at the true nature of the world. Vehem rak shamu vehevinu oisa about the gashmi shemnes hanirim. B'doim lemuzbar b'teres achsidish hakadosh baruch hu yachid umyuchad lagamri umovade ein shum etzias acheres. V'im kach chassidus asks, ulai kol ha'olam hu kedimyon al kach meshiva ha'teres achsidus masbira shahayichacha or achas hayichachas l'metzias ha'olam mashenemra b'teres emes b'reishis bara elikim. In other words, like this. We are looking at the world as maybe yes, maybe not. We need a proof that the world exists. Normally, what do you need proofs for? You need proofs for the Eibishter. You need proofs for Elikus. Chassidus is turning it all around. Chassidus says the true experience is Einoid Milvadoid, that there's nothing besides Hashem. So when it comes to the world, how do I know that the world exists? Because it says in the Torah that the world exists. Otherwise, I don't know. Maybe the world doesn't exist. By the way, it says that there were certain tzaddikim, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rashbi, the Rabbeim, that by them it was a term called Elikus b'pshitas v'ilmus b'schachas. The only reason why they knew there was a world was like this, because it says B'reishis bara Elokim, because the Torah says there's a world. And you see this, by the way, so many times in the Rebbe's Sichos and Mamorim, that even when he talks about a gashmistic thing that we're all aware of, what does the Rebbe do? He brings a pasuk or a maimer chazal to tell us that this is so. You need to have a pasuk, you need a maimer chazal. Anybody that's alive knows that whatever, the hand does this, the eye does that. No, he's got to bring you a proof from the Torah, because that's the whole way of looking at the world. The true existence of the Eibishter, and the only reason why we know about the world is because of Torah. So the Rebbe tries to give an example of how we see different people can look at the same thing and see different things, even though they're all the same event. We learned in the Gemara, two people came to Bezin, they're holding on to one beged, and each one says, I found it. This one has to swear that he found it, this one he swears, and then they divide it. So the Rebbe says like this: you have three groups of people over here. You have the Dayan, you have the Shoiter, and then you have the two Baladinim. And each one, their reality and their focus is something totally different. Yesh bekach shloish inyanim hasvaris hamachayves psak. Then there's psak hadin ulaacher mekain hashvua v'chaluk satalis. So these are to be found regardless. Everybody is aware of these three things, but everybody, depending on what their role that they play, their awareness is different. B'chalokim elu yesh hevdel in bali adin lebein hashoiter v'adayin. Sheitzel kol echad mem havadoes v'ametzias b'inyan zei shoyne. Legabe Baalei Adin ba'olam sholahem kayomis rak hashvua v'chaluk satalis. That's their reality. That's their truth. Etzlam zoi kolam mitzvos shel inyan. Amnam gam etzlam kasher hem yisyaninu v'yachkeru hem yavinu sha'agoyrim l'chaluk satalis hu apsak din shehuvar l'shoiter. Yavinu sha'agoyrim l'chaluk satalis. Yeah. Shenikva k'toitzois ma'adei shoynus. But they don't care about that so much. They're not so much interested in the psak din. They're not so much interested in the tainus. They want to know exactly. The talis, what else do I have to do? I have to swear? That's all. Don't give me all types of... I used to have a pediatrician for my kids that loved to go into all the details about the things. Not only did I have all the patience to sit through the whole thing, well, just needs antibiotics. Give me the antibiotics. I'll take it to my kids and finish, He used to explain everything. It's very nice. It was very geschmack, but sometimes that's got a little bit too much. The Baladin's world, they know we got to swear, okay? Then we divide the talis, fine. The svaris, okay, when I go the next time to have my shear, I'll go figure out the svaris. Hashoiter she'olav levades kim psakadin, literally the officer of the court. So when you have the marshals in the court, their job is to make sure they don't care about what motivated the judge, and they don't really care about the people. Their job is to make sure that the psak din is fulfilled. Harel gabav havadois hamitzis shel kol ha'inyan u'psak adin. Ve'ilu etzla adayin ha'pois k'sadin etzlo mitzias ha'inyan elu hein ha'svaris v'adeis she'evilu l'psak adin. V'apsak u'bitzua hem rak toitzah ma'adiyun ve'iyun b'deis ha'shoynes. So this is all an example to be able to understand. You can look at things differently. I could either choose to look at the Gashmias of this world, and the Ruchnis is just something that I heard about. Like, for example, the Baalei Din. They're interested in the Gashmias. They're interested in the Shvuah they have to make and splitting the talis. The reason behind it, fine, okay, there's a reason, whatever. On the other hand, the Dayan, he lives in a spiritual world. He lives in the world of the mind, of Svaris. The same thing, the Yidden by Matan Torah experienced the Ruchnias. They weren't so interested anymore in the Gashmis. They were experiencing Elokus. Lafizem. Okay, this is all explained in Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yishmael argues with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yishmael says that by Matan Torah it comes to tell us, no, they saw what's usually seen and they heard what's usually heard. What maila is that to have that by Matan Torah? The fizi yesh lahavnes das Rabbi Yishmael ezem maila v'miyuchad b'zman Matan Torah shu si ha'isalus misbatas ba'oifen hativi shel royin sanir v'shoymnes hanishma. Hezber l'kachu achidush shel Matan Torah hu vayered Hashem al har Sinai el yoinim yerdu l'mata, like it says ani hamaschel, that the Eibishter said, I am going to be the one that's going to start the process of bringing the things from above, Ruchnis, down into this world. Hamshachas halakus lamata ba'olam. Dafke, when is that so? Kasher ha'olam nishar b'gvuloisav hativim v'sham yurgesh ha'idei ha'toira noisna toira lakus. Matan Torah, it says that Hashem did not raise up the Yidden to Shemayim. He could have raised up the Yidden to Shemayim and given them to the Torah and then sent them down. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu went up on Shemayim. He could have done the same thing with the Yidden. But that's not the purpose of Matan Torah. The purpose of Matan Torah is that Elokus should come down here into this world. Because the purpose of Matan Torah is that Elokus should come down into this world, don't destroy the normal order of the world. Let the world still be a world where the physical matters. L'chein soivi Rabbi Yishmael shebe'eis Matan Torah. It's a mistake over here. It's supposed to say Torah. The Yisrael b'dargas ha'olam kefishu b'gmalois v'ativim. Ach davke bekach his bate achidush hanayla b'yoyser shalom rois sheroin hanira v'shoymin hanishma. The world is limited in its normal limited fashion. Hari bezman Matan Torah he'ira kol kach b'ri'io b'shmiya zu ha'emes havaya la'olam shal halakus. Achadover heaviest me Yisrael is batlus hamuchletes vayanu v'yamdu merachik. Even though they didn't lose sight of the physical world, and the physical was still closer to them. They still trembled before Hashem, and they still jumped back and couldn't handle the great Gilui of Matan Torah. Now the Rebbe is going to go into another point. The Rebbe a lot of times does this with Pirush Rashi al Torah. When a certain Manda Omar, when the Rebbe brings down a certain Manda, when Rashi brings down a certain Manda Omar in Rashi, he says, this and this Tanya, this and this murder, this and this person said so and so. The Rebbe always wants to know why, when you're teaching the Chamish Lamikra, is it important to bring in who said it. And it's confusing. You're dealing with a 5-year-old, why bring in these things? So always the Rebbe says it's to learn out from it something. In a similar vein, not mamish in this type of way, but the fact that Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva both argue about this, it has to do with who they are. Each one, what they said, reflected their type of avodah. Maya siba lakach shal das Rabbi Yishmael tachlis hamayli dafke beroyin hanira v'shoymin hanishma vilul das Rabbi Akiva tachlis hamayli dafke beroyin hanishma v'shoymin hanira hahezber lakachu Rabbi Yishmael haya kohen. It's brought down he was a kohen gadol according to some opinions. Asher hu betivai kodesh l'Hashem alakav keloymar avedasa hi kavodas tzadikim. Lachein hu soiver behesam lemahusay l'dargas avedasay sha'amayla hagdoili hi beroyin hanira v'shoymin hanishma. What did we say is the idea between royin hanishma royin hanira v'shoymin hanishma? It's about bringing down vayered Hashem al Har Sinai el yonim yerdul tachtoinim. It's about bringing a lakus down. That's the avoid of tzaddikim. Hamshachas halakus ba'olam kefishu lamata b'migbeloisav. Ki zoi havoida musadar shal tzaddikim hamshachas halakus mamayl lamata. So Rabbi Yishmael did not want to destroy the mata. Rabbi Yishmael wanted to bring a lakus into the world the way the world is running naturally, the way it has the ordinary hagbolos of the world. Ilu avidasei shal Rabbi Akiva. It's supposed to be over here in Rosh Tevis. Haisa bekivan shal tshuva. Why is it in tshuva? Maitzaya hayam and mishpachas gedim. V'hischelu matayra b'yayisa ben abayim shana. Lachein avidasei hi kavodas bal tshuva yitzia min ha'olam. And where do you see this yitzia min ha'olam? With the Mesiras Nefesh of Rabbi Akiva. That all of his life he wanted to be Ma'aser Nefesh. All of his life he wanted to leave this world. Kivichanu Moitzim Shakal Yama V'Shtoikik Rabbi Akiva Limseres Nafshei B'Poyel. That when Rabbi Akiva was being killed by the Romans, so he was over there rejoicing, and he was saying Shema Yisrael, and his Talmidim asked him Ad Kedei Kach. He said, what do you mean Ad Kedei Kach? All my life I've been waiting to give up my life for the Eibishter. So this was Rabbi Akiva's whole yearning and whole chukki was to leave this world, to be out of this world, not under the limitations of the world. So really, since this is what he wanted all of his life, so really all of his life he was out of this world. V'dafke hi anisana shelafi daito yamayla hagdoili beroyin hanishma v'shoymin hanira yitzia mikol magbolos ha'olam. Now he's going to connect this back to the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael al hein v'al lav lav, which is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, or the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael versus the opinion of Rabbi Akiva was al hein Va'alav, they also answered hey. Mitzvos yeshnei inyan. Aleph hanekudam shetefes v'hashava b'chol mitzvos shekulon hein tzivui shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's something that all mitzvahs have. And in the kavanos of mitzvahs, the Rebbe also notes in the footnote, when a person says that mitzvah tzrichas kavana, what type of kavana? You don't have to know yichudim al yoinim and all types of secrets. You have to know that you are doing this mitzvah, whether it's tefillin, mezuzah, Shabbos, whatever, because Hashem commanded it. That's kavanah klalis. And that, all the mitzvahs have. Sada Shavit, all the mitzvahs, common denominator. They're all what Hashem commanded. Beis, then Chalukasan Shal Mitzvahs L'Sugim Shoinim V'ad L'Yichudiyus HaMasiyam Shebechol Mitzvah. First, there's different categories like Mishpatim and Chukim and Eidos, and then there's even more. Breaks down every mitzvah is unique. Asher be'amtzeusam bezdachim koiches m'siyamim elu shel adam v'dvarim gashrim elu hakshurim b'miyuchad l'mitzvah zu, like it's brought down in Chassidus and Kabbalah. I'll say when I learn Torah, I'm refining my brain. When I'm putting on tefillin, so I'm refining my hand and my head. When I do another mitzvah, I'm refining a different part of my body. When I'm eating kosher, I'm refining my stomach and my inner organs. V'chadoyma. So every mitzvah has its own job, its own mission, its own purpose, in addition to the fact that all mitzvahs in common have the idea that they're mitzvahs of the Eibishter. Shnei inyanim elu misbatim b'ifani ha'avodo b'shitas ha'shoynes shel Rabbi Yishmael v'Rabbi Akiva. Lefi shitas Rabbi Yishmael royin hanira v'shaymin hanishma sha'mayli hi b'kach sha'olam koilet elakus davke aydei kela v'ativim b'chol proteyim. You don't want to break the world. You don't want to leave the world. In the world. Move on shagam kiyam mitzvos ayidei Yisrael ein tzarich lizbater rak b'kabolos oil malch shemayim b'chlolos. It's not just enough the first level of the mitzvahs. I'm doing the mitzvah because it's a tzivui of Hashem. That's more like leaving this world. You're not dealing with the details of the mitzvah. This mitzvah is connected with this part of the world. This mitzvah is connected with that part. Ela beikar, according to Rabbi Yishmael, tzarech la'agiel lismaser la'asogas kol inyan v'zichuch prati ayde kol mitzvah mitzvah. V'lachein soiver Rabbi Yishmael shebnei Yisrael le'shiva al hein hein v'al lav lav shebechol mitzvah hem evchinu b'mehusa hamyuchedes b'mitzvos aseh hein hi mikiru b'hein b'inyan achayuvi b'toiv v'mayla shebehem. What does it mean they said yes? They saw, tefillin is a wonderful thing. Shabbos is a wonderful thing. Mezuzah is unbelievable. Over mitzvahs loises a lav, hemikiru b'lav b'inna shlili b'heipach ha'toiv sheb'isurim elu, that they saw wearing shatnez, bowing down to Avodah Zarah, stealing. These are things that ruin the world, are negative, that are undoing, that are connected with klippos. So they said, no, don't want to have anything to do with it. It's not about what's going on in the world. It's all about yes and no, aseh loise. It's all about the mitzvah of Hashem. Tzarich loymar sha'adogish b'kiyam ha'mitzvahs einam b'pratim ha'miyuchadim l'chol mitzvah v'ashpa'asim b'inyanei olam ela etzem kiyam ha'tzivui ha'boirei davar ha'naylam ha'pratim ha'gvulos. L'chein savi Rabbi Akiva shem yeshiva al hein hein v'alav hein hudgash beikar atzivui aklalish hakadosh baruch hu ashave b'chol hamitzvos v'lo ha'pratim ha'suyim shel kol mitzvah v'lechein hem lo yosu avchana b'tshuvasa mitzvos aseh mitzvos loise. It was all one thing. Wow, we have a chance to be mekayim the tzivui of Hashem. Don't eat treif? Yes, to be mekayim the tzivui of Hashem. Kabed savicha amecha. Tzivui of Hashem. Tefillin, wow! Tzivui of Hashem. Don't wear sharpness? Great! Tzivui of the Eibishter. That's all it was about. Not about the details of how it functions in the world and what it affects in the world. Ve'yeshivu al kol hatzivuyim hein al aseh ve'hen al loisa b'yisa tshuva hein. Hem yekayim was hatzivui shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'milim acheres. B'avidos es Rabbi Yishmael b'kiyam ha'mitzvahs avodas hatzadikim nikeres ha'mitzvah v'ashpa'asa ba'olam. V'lechein nivdolos ha'mitzvahs l'fi proteyim l'sugim shoynim v'af b'chlolos l'shnei ha'sugim shel hein v'lav v'ilu b'avidos es Rabbi Akiva avodas hatshuva mesiras nefesh nikeres b'mitzvah rak etzem kiyum rotzon Hashem hein. Has been noisef l'shtas Rabbi Akiva al hein hein v'alav hein. The Rebbe is going to bring another concept, another idea in this hein hein and lav hein. Chuvasam hein gam alav mitzvos aseh loises. I'm sorry. Ein rak mitzvah tzad hashavish mitzvos loise mitzvos aseh, like we said before. Kiyum tzivui haboirei ela gam mitzad ha'inyan shel hein asher b'lav atzmai. Gam b'dvarim ha'asurim sha'aleim nitztavinu b'loises himro v'yirgishu rak b'hein hatoy v'agdusha mizgalim ayde kiyum haloises. Perhaps to explain it, we can give an example the Rebbe explains how when we see something negative in another Yid, he brings in the Baal Shem Tov, that's a siman. The reason why we see something negative, it's a siman that because we have it inside, at least bedakis the dakis, and that's why we see it. So it was really not meant, it's not his fault, it's about a message to me that I need to fix myself up. But we know in other cases that you have to, you have a job, if you see somebody doing something wrong, you need to correct it, and so on. So how do these two things fit together? So the Rebbe says like this. If you're seeing that Ploini ben Ploini is doing something bad, then that's a message to you. That's a reflection on you. That's a mirror trying to tell me that I am doing something bad, and that's why I'm seeing that that person is doing bad. But if I'm seeing the positive, there's an opportunity here to correct something that's broken. There's an opportunity here to make this lav into a hein. So I'm not judging that person. I'm not looking down at that person. I'm seeing the good opportunity that's here. I'm seeing a good thing. Then it's a positive thing. In a similar way, you could look at things in this world as being mitzvahs are good, averos are bad, which is one way of looking at things. That's Rabbi Shmuel's way of looking. It's okay. It's only by a person that's a problem. But looking at way in the world, yeah, something that's treif is bad, it's negative, it's klippa. But then there's a different way of looking. This negative thing that I'm seeing is meant to bring out a great good. Because by seeing this negative thing, I know that I have to transform it. I know that I need to overcome it. I know that I need to withstand the test. I don't look at the negative as just a negative, as just a lav. I see the positive that I have an opportunity to do the mitzvah by not eating this thing, by not doing this activity. I'm seeing all the positive in it. And that has to do with Rabbi Akiva's shita, as we're soon going to explain. Hadover masim l'shita shel roim es hanishma v'shemin es hanira. Kasher nimtzoim bedarge shel shemin es hanira sha'agash mis hanira sha'olam. Miskabel es rak ba'ifim shel shmir rechoika. How is the world? When you're looking at the world, it's far away. It's something you don't relate to, because you're relating to the ruchnius of the world. Like we said before, that in Chassidus it says, how do you know that the world exists? Because the Torah says the world exists. But you don't know that the world exists. Therefore, if the only way you're looking at the world is how it has to do with Torah mitzvahs, like the worst of it all, the person who's holding in the Aseret Dibros says, what can be worse than that? Shouldn't he be seeing the negative? No. Because when he's looking at the world, he doesn't see the world. He sees the good in the world. He sees the lakus. So they didn't answer lav when the Eibishter said lo yeh lecha. Ela beikir behein, they see the positive of it. Betzad achiyuvi shaydei yisnagdazu efshel l'kayim masiva Hashem lo yeh lecha alav hein. They see the positive that when there's avodah zarah, I can be mekayim the mitzvah lo yeh lecha l'kim acherim. שיטות זו של רבי עקיבא לגבי עניונים של לאו, משתקפת גם בסיפור המובא בגמרא, כאשר ראו רבי עקיבא ותנועים נאספים שול יוצא מבייס קודש הקדושים, which is a horrible thing. The place where the Kodesh HaKadoshim used to stand, it was destroyed, and you had a lowly animal walking over there. הרי כשהתנועים האחרים בכו על כך, שמוקים שכסו בי ועזור הקרב יומס, ועכשיו שואלים הולכו בי. So what was Rabbi Akiva's reaction? An amazing reaction. Oz Rabbi Akiva tzachak. What's he laughing about? This is a terrible event. ולשאל סתן לא מרימת ומצחק, הישב והיז בלם רב עקיבא, שברויסה שמסקיימס נבואס אוריה על חורבן ירושלים, ובייס המקדש מסחזקס ועדה עושה בקיים נבואס זכרה, עוד יש וזקנס ברחוב ירושלים. So again, when Rabbi Akiva looked at negative, he only saw it as a stepping stool for the positive. Keloi margam be'inyan kol kach shlili lav. Shul yoytzim beis kodesh kadashim loyra Rabbi Akiva salav al asahein as yoyz hadavar edus lakiyum nevuah Zechariah. I can't hold myself back. We see this so much by the Rebbe. When the Rebbe bumps into something that's not good, or someone that's doing something not good, what does he tell him? You have now an amazing opportunity. You can now reach higher than even I can. Because I didn't have this problem, and you had this challenge. Now you have the mile of tshuva. The Rebbe right away sees in the negative that the person is doing, the guy didn't do tshuva yet. So he doesn't say, you're a terrible person, you're a pesheya, you're a this, you're that. No. He right away said, give a look. You have an amazing gift. The Rebbe is looking into the lav and seeing the hain and seeing the positive. Shnei Efanim Eilu Ba'avodah. Shittas Rabbi Yishmael Avodas Tzadikim, Shittas Rabbi Akiva Avodas Tshuva. Kayomim Eitzel Yehudim Shekvar Nimtzoim Be'emtza Avodah. Now he's going to go back to what Rashi says. That we said Rashi picks one of one shitta and then one of the other shitta. Because Rashi is talking about the someone that's a ben chamish l'mikra. Ben chamish l'mikra is not yet ready for a lot of these high inyanim. He can only handle one, but not all of it. Ach etzel ben chamish l'mikra, af kasher b'shon mukvar godol ach avodas Hashem wa'adayim b'dargah shel ben chamish. In other words, the Rebbe is saying ben chamish l'mikra doesn't have to mean necessarily he's a ben chamish because on his birth certificate it says ben chamish. The Rebbe always says it's not our identity cards that determine what our age is. Could be in avodas Hashem, he's still a ben chamish, so he needs to know that his avodah may not be able to have parts of these two avodas. Shetzarich lahaskal avodas Hashem v'gam zois hadayin ba'ofen shel chinuch mimenu nidresh rak ha'ofen shel roinus hanishma. Rashi says roinus hanishma. He tells us that ben chamish. Right? So Nishma seems to be a higher level. But still in all, Shu Yargil Es Atzmai Ba'avoida Shel Ha'aschola V'Hagdama Shel Kol Chelkei HaShulchan Aruch. Right away, as soon as a person opens up a Shulchan Aruch, it says what you need to picture in your mind. What do you need to see? Tchila Siman Aleph Shel Chelek Aleph Or Yechaim. Shivisi Avaya Lenegdi Samid Sha'em Shel Akus Nishma Tia Etzli B'Ofen Shel Ria Akus B'Pshitas. So even someone that's in the beginning of their avodah, you could tell them, listen, this is the goal. This is what we're trying for. This is what we're aiming for. We have to imagine that the Eibishter is standing before me. Achadayin ein deutsch memenu lagia ledarga shel shoyminus hanira shul lo yiris in yonah olam v'yikloit as metzias ha'olam rak b'derech shel shmiya metzias b'yischadshas. That we're not yet expecting from him to look at the physical and say, I don't see physical, I just see ruchnius. Or I don't give any importance to the physical. That is already too much for the beginning of the avodah. Ki betchilas ha'avodah, af kasher inyanam aruchnim kvar meskablim etzli b'pshitas, adayim toifsim etzli mokim gam inyanam agashmim, v'gam zois b'pshitas, that the physical thing also is a given. Keloima. Eitzel ben achamesh achim barur upashu shutzarech lilmei Torah l'kayim mitzvos. V'adavar koi barur loy she'einu tzarech likvoi zois al atzmai. Kfiyah datit, he doesn't have to force himself. Ach gama inyanim agash v'machil shtia v'kedoyme kayamim etzloi boiz manis bepashtus. He can live in both worlds. He can know it's a given, I'm Jewish, I have to say moedani, I have to say a bracha before I eat. But just like I take it for granted, I have to say moedani, I have to say bracha before I eat. He also takes it for granted that I like to eat, and I like to play, and I like to have enjoyment in life. These are two things that live together with him. Wadayin eine bedarge shetzrocha v'agashim lo yitvus v'etzlei klal mokim v'yukayim moisem rak l'shem shamayim. L'chein bepirush Rashi ala Torah. She'ka'amar pam Rabbis Rashi kosses pirushoi beroish berushoyne b'derech hapshat. U'ba'oifan ha'meskabel gam ha'ideh ben chamish muva raka inyan sh'roinas ha'nishma v'loi shoymenes ha'nira. Why not? Ki betchilas ha'avoida hein ha'nishma ruchnis v'hein ha'nira gashmias kayamim b'oifan shoriyah b'pshitas. So he has both. He has royin as ha'nishma v'royin as ha'nira, not shoymin as ha'nira. He doesn't come yet to a level where what's seen is only heard from afar, that's far away from him. No, he has a riyah in both. He has a connection with both. He has a connection with halakus, and he has a connection with gashmis. V'zeu gama hezber l'kach, sherashi mazme pirush sha'oifen shaleimar, haya alav lav. Why? Like the shita of Rabbi Yishmael. Even though the royinus hanishma is the shita of Rabbi Akiva, Kiven shemeduber kam legaba nimtzoyim betchilas ha'avoidam shakar sheroi lamadayin toifes etzlam makim hemadayin royim be'elakim acher medvarim ma'asurim acher mesalav shebehem. If the world matters to the person, so they're still not yet come to a level where everything they see in the world, the positive, the lakus, they see that there are certain things that are bad, certain things that are good. As Beirish Rashi Shabnei Yisrael Shival Hein Hein Valav Lav Vishegiu Rak Leroinis Hanishma Mishum Meduber Betchil Savoida Ruchnis Einoi Masem Barak Ledaitu Sharab Akiva Kidla El Shal Shita Say Hamayla Gedoyle Hidavke B'Shem Nesanir Alav Hein Elagam L'Shita Say Sharab Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael also could appreciate this. How? Didn't Rabbi Yishmael say Royin Esanira? Not and shoymin es hanishma, not royin es hanishma. And Rashi says royin es hanishma is yeshayich for ben chamish lemikra. How can you fit in what Rashi says about royin es hanishma with Rabbi Yishmael's shita? So he says the fish shita is Rabbi Yishmael hamayla gedoylihi kasher shoymin es hanishma sham shachas alakus malmayla lamati hiad ledarga nemucha beyoser shein tach lamata emanu. Keloimar halakus eino nimshechas mizgalas rak b'mokim sheboy hahelam sha'olam u'ba'ofen shal roinas hanira shemetzius ha'olam miskabelas kiri'iyah pshuta ve'ein nikir shemetzius zu mischadeshes tamid aydei HaKadosh Baruch Hu hamahavois tamid ma'ayin ve'efes hamuchlot elagam b'mokim sheboy hahester u'koi otzum ad kedei kach Sherak shoymin as hanishma mokim amole beklipus itrachra machrizes haniva afsioid shemitziyusam mevatas as a hepech hazu shalom rachman l'tzlan me'achtus tzis habayri v'zkukim sham le'chachas sichlis b'bchin shoymin gam lekiyum mashalakus b'bchin nishma. In other words, elikus is not limited. You can have elikus come down even in such a place that tries to make the world look like something of its own. A metzias nefredes. The kolza amr Rabbi Yehudish kvar giya lakach sheyuchlai di dargat sadik shaboy lahavil de amshachas elikus gam b'mokim koi tachten asher elikus kayem nisham ba'ifin shel shmiya. Only a tzaddik is able to reach so far that even in a place that the world looks at Hashem as just something, yeah, you heard about the Eibishter, but it's not practical, it's not living in your world. He could bring elikus down over there. That's the power of the tzaddik. V'adavar alu la'afriyai b'limud ha'toyra b'kiyum ha'mitzvos. Etzloi tzarech liyas adayin ha'oifen shel roinas ha'nishma she'inyanei elikus yiskablu etzloi b'pshitas. That's why even Rabbi Yishmael will admit that a ben chamish lemikra needs to have the type of approach that he has to be far away from such a type of thing. Just to give a simple example. When we're growing up, we don't go out into the world. We have to be enclosed in the Dal Amas of Yeshiva. Grow up, we get married, then we can go out into the world. Some people open Chabad houses, then they get involved with the world. But someone that's still young, they're not ready for the world yet. They are not ready for what could look as being dark in the world. The same thing, Rabbi Yishmael was talking to a person that's a tzaddik. He could deal with the darkness of the world and say, the world, the way it is dark, over there I'm going to bring down the Gil Elikus. Even a place where it's Shoyminas HaNishma, that Elikus is in a way that's far away. But for Ben Chamish L'Mikra, someone that's the beginning of the way of the Chinuch, you can't do that to them. They're not ready for that yet. They need to be trained in such a type of way that Elikus is the true reality. Either Rabbi Yishmael's approach or Rabbi Akiva's approach. Which is Rabbi Yishmael's approach is which is Rabbi Yishmael, that he brings down Elikus even in such a place that says, I am my own being, don't mix anything about Elikus in with me. Or you have to do the avodah of Rabbi Akiva. La avodah shalom al mata l'mayla halos atzmai va'olam ha'migbalas ha'tivius. Ad shu lo yaster v'yalmas elikus ela adrabim royinas hanishma ve'af ha'olam atzmai lo yira klal k'metzias b'fnei atzmai shoyminas hanira v'alav hein. V'kivim sheshtei hashitas shitas Rabbi Yishmael v'shitas Rabbi Akiva hein b'torah shval peh shehi ha'ira l'chol echad v'echad miYisrael tzrichim liyos it's a kol echad shnei fanu avodah elu hamshachem al mayla lamata the avodah of the tzaddik bringing Elikus into the world v'alam al mata lamaylam v'zoy ha'achana masima v'akli l'kiyum hayid v'samti kodkod shem shesayich. So the Chazal say there's a machlokes what type of stone is talking about kodkod that they say that the glass will be made out of, what type of the windows will be made out of kodkod. One says it's shoyam, one says it's yashvei. So the Gemara says kodkod could be kedain v'chedain. Lehev kedain v'chedain. Now according to Chassidus, shoyam and yashvei goes on the avodah of Baal Tshuva, the avodah of tzaddikim. So therefore the Rebbe says that when Mashiach comes, it will be both the ma'ila of avodah of Baal Tshuva and the avodah of tzaddikim. The hamshachem al ma'ila mata, the halam al mata l'ma'ila, she'yishmav mish begula mitzvah shleima de Mashiach tzadkeinu b'karev mamish.